Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Cosmic Heartist podcast. We're doing another month overview, and this one's extra special because this one is actually for January 2025. This is the first month we have of 2025 with completely new electric energy. We have so many planetary shifts happening this year, shifts that don't regularly happen. We're going to be talking more about this in an episode with a special guest later this month. But today we'll be talking about January, the tides, the planetary shifts. We won't go so deep like we have been going into squares and trines. We'll only talk about shifts and conjunctions for the most part. And conjunctions are when two planets are at the same degree, so beside each other. But yeah, let's flow with it. But before that, hi Thea, how are you? And how are you feeling into the new year?
Hi, thanks for having me again in yet another juicy month. I have been feeling very much contemplative, like I really feel this winter solstice energy, and I have been enjoying the calm and the rest and the respite and the reflection that the season brings. And so really hope that our cosmic forecast are also helping you guys tune into what the cosmic energies are inviting us to do so that we can lean into it and work with the energies more than, working against. So how are you? You're in Bali. How's Bali for you?
I am in Bali. It is nice. It's been very, very rainy, which is trippy because a lot of times within Bali, like we're staying in Seminyak, which is where most of the things are, and the best way to get around is to walk. So we've been walking in the rain, taking umbrellas, and really realizing that the weather isn't under our control, which is like the rest of life. Like nothing is really in our control other than our own lives and what we choose to do with it. So that's Bali. It's giving me um, I think deep life reflections because as I was sharing with you, Thea, the last time I was here in Bali was with my whole family. It was our first full family trip and our last full family trip because my dad passed. But the last time we were here was with my dad, and now we're here with Nav's, my husband's family, and my mom. So it's interesting noticing these just the way things change and the evolution of things, and also the ability to create new memories where memories already exist, um,
Mm,
and add a different flavor to the new memories. I don't think it's easy, but I do think that it's testing. It's really
mhm,
testing, and I think that's something that's gonna come up a lot in 2025. That's something that came up a lot in 2024, I feel like life testing us, and I feel
mhm,
like in 2025, we'll just get more of that, like different
mhm,
flavors of that, especially with the planetary shifts and, just testing our bandwidth and testing our integrity and testing our values and testing our morals and testing how safe we feel. Like Capricorn
mhm,
things, right? All the
mhm,
Capricorn things. Um,
mhm.
and Thea knows a lot about Capricorn. You're a double Capricorn, aren't you?
Triple,
Triple.
quadruple. Let's tell
Thea
you more
has a
Capricorn.
lot of Capricorn. So this is going to be interesting. So as we're recording this, the sun is already in Capricorn. And yeah, okay, let's just jump into it.
Yep,
Um, okay, so I have my dates here, not like my calendar as per the usual, but so going into January, can you believe that we're talking about January?
oh my gosh, no. No.
It's crazy. Okay, so January 3rd, Pisces, Venus moves into Pisces, and Mars in Leo is opposite Pluto in Aquarius. Venus has been in Aquarius for a bit, not that long. Um, but Venus in Aquarius was very playful, I feel like, and very
Mm,
electric and very collaborative and very much about um, all like just feeling into all the possibilities for
mhm,
ourselves,
mhm,
for beauty, for finding beauty in the worst. situations in the muck. And
Mhm.
now we have Venus moving into Pisces, which is the last sign of the zodiac. How does that feel for you?
It feels very creative. It feels very empathic. It feels very compassionate. I mean, Venus in Pisces is an exalted Venus, meaning it's Venus in her most favorite sign of the zodiac. So those of us who have a lot of Pisces placements, also those with a lot of like strong Venusian, Taurus, Libra, expect beauty, expect more love, expect more compassion and rest and creativity because I mean we're entering the year in still this contemplative reflective mode just because Mars is still retrograde. And on the same time, like with Venus and Pisces, it's softening. It's allowing us to be more tender. I mean that Mars and Pluto opposition has been quite intense. It's been quite intense in the world stage. I don't know how it's been playing out individually, but this can be like a signature of power struggle. And with Venus easing, flowing, tempering, tenderizing that power struggle, there may be some ease in the way that you can find balance. There might be some sense of reconciliation or a beautiful outlet for you to find, or like a beautiful opportunity where you can come in a more cohesive and loving and empathic, compassionate space just to balance out, all that intensity that the Mars and Pluto opposition has been giving us. So with whilst we start the year, there's actually a lot of endings because like you said, Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. And we also have January where the nodes are shifting, which we're going to touch up more on later. But as we start the month and the planet of love, and relationship and values, teaching us how to be more Piscean, how to be more forgiving, how to be more empathic and compassionate and creative, it fuses this sense of spirituality and mystical quality to like just all the fire and all the air that will be greeting us for the rest of 2025, but also has been giving us some sense of intro the last couple of months. That's how I'm feeling like the first week in my body. What's coming up for you?
Well, I think it's also important to preface this by saying astrologically, it's not the new year. We don't
Yeah.
actually have an astrological new year until March, which is when the sun moves into Aries. So believe what you want. We often go by the Gregorian New Year just because it's what the whole world does. But if you don't feel like it's a new year, if you are feeling this breakdown, this ending cycle very strongly in your body, honor it and trust that it's okay that you don't feel like setting resolutions. You don't feel like you're stepping into something new. Maybe you don't feel the energy of new because like Thea just said, um, it's a lot of endings, and also considering that Mars, which is the planet of action and motivation and drive and moving forward and, passion, is still retrograde, and currently it's still retrograde in, Leo, but then by the 6th, it's gonna be is it by the 6th? It looks like.
It's by the 6th, yes.
Yeah,
It's
by
going
the
to
6th,
enter.
it's gonna be moving back into Cancer. And so what's fascinating is that on the 3rd, we have Venus, planet of the divine feminine, moving into
Mhm.
water, Pisces. And then on the 6th, we have Mars, planet of the divine, maybe not divine, but possible divine masculine, moving into Cancer. So we have this double water, which is actually so fitting how I started with how Bali is by talking about the rain, because
Mm,
it's just so much water. And I feel this opportunity of water is to just feel so deeply. And like you
mhm,
said, like create from the feeling. If we don't have an outlet, I feel like we resort to deep sitting with emotions. And I think when we're
Mm,
sitting with emotions for too long, emotions become illusions. And when emotions
mm,
become illusions, we start doing dumb shit. And so, to avoid
mhm,
doing dumb shit, I think it's
mm,
very important that we have this outlet where we're able to share our creativity and we're
mm.
able to share just what's coming through to us because Pisces is so intuitive and Cancer is so intuitive. And if we tap into this side of it, I think the art that we share is unparalleled, especially
Mm.
considering Pluto in Aquarius and the
Yeah.
opportunity to share in a way that's unheard of, that's never been seen, that doesn't need to be any single way. Like something I love so much is how instead of like people creating Canva infographics on Instagram, I've seen so much of like people just writing on a paper and
Yeah.
posting that. And do you know what's so funny?
Yeah.
When I started Karina the Heartist, which was actually Starry Starry Vibes back in 2019, 2020, that's what I was doing. I was like doing calligraphy and taking photos of that and posting that. And
Mhm.
obviously that was not what was in back then. So it wasn't really getting a lot of attention. But now it's like that's what it is, and I feel like that's so cool actually because it's so real. It's so tangible. Like, I feel like if we go to a college right now and sit in a classroom, I don't think we'll even find one person that's writing with a pen and paper, right? And so to have that return to the basics, to pen and paper, to earth, to ground, um, yeah, I feel like that's a gift, and that's what we are entering 2025 with, this whole new opportunity. Did you want to say more about Mars opposite Pluto?
No, I think we've touched up on it in quite a deep dive and detail the past month. So they can refer back to, our previous episodes when they want to hear more about that. But this is an energy that we're going to be sitting with until July. So this is a lot. There's a lot of movement, and there's a lot of energy. There's a lot of unstuck energy that is being brought up into the surface. There's a lot of Pisces energy in the ether in 2025. So it's really around karmic endings. It's really around new beginnings. It's the cosmic toilet. Like Pisces is the cosmic toilet where everything just washes itself away so that it can begin again with Aries. And so there's a lot to do with our emotional awareness and our emotional maturity to create safety for ourselves, right? We kept talking about building a home for our emotions. So I think I'll rest with that.
So here we are with the question of have you built a home for your emotions or are you still working on it? And if you're still working on it, what would it take for your home to be more solid? I guess. Okay, and so on the 6th, we said Mars moves back into Cancer from spending some time in Leo. And we already kind of shared what that means. But on the same day, we have Pluto sextile the North Node in Aries. And I'm bringing this in because this is one of the only Pluto aspects, other than some conjunctions that we're going to have later this month. So, what do you have to say about Pluto sextile the North Node? Pluto is in Aquarius. The North Node is in Aries, like Thea said, just for this month. This is the
Yeah.
last month we have the North Node in Aries and the South Node in Libra. So, what does this
Yeah.
sextile mean to you?
Yeah. So I really like what Stormy, I think I said this before, Stormy Grace, how she words sex style is when planets have sex, it's good for us. But for me, with sextiles, they're also harmonious aspects, but where in trines, it's effortless and easeful. You don't have to do anything. With sextiles, there's action needed. Like there are opportunities. It's a harmonious aspect, but you have to do something to get the most out of the opportunity. And here again, I talked about how, 2025 it's a 9 year in numerology. So it really has to do with closing, ending, because it's making space for new beginnings. With this last aspect of the North Node in Aries before it moves to Pisces, and with Pluto, nonetheless, planet of death, rebirth, transformation, and change, invitation to ask yourself, how much did you allow yourself to take bold and courageous, inspired action to own your self agency, own your unique gift? Pluto in Aquarius has a lot to do with we, collective energy, where Aries has a lot to do with self agency, individuating, independence, courageously trailblazing a new pathway that's just right and unique for you. How have you been doing that the past 18 months? And if you haven't really been taking that bold, courageous move, it's never too late. Your timing is always elegant and perfect for you. The invitation here, though, is now, how can you take more aligned, inspired action so that your unique gift and individual story is actually more coherent and in support of the collective transformation that is taking place? I love this Marianne Williamson quote: each of us has a role to play in the healing of our world. And in the same way, each of us has a unique contribution to the change and transformation that the world needs, or the world will be going through, whether or not we participate or not. And this Aries North Node reminds us that we are here to participate. So how have you participated? And if you haven't been, you still have an opportunity to participate. How can you be more courageous? Where is fear stopping you from ending the karmic ties that are supposed to be ending? And these are some contemplations that I'm inviting you to have for yourself.
Yeah, and just breaking that down, where that came from, what they is explaining is Aries is the sign of me, like
Mhm,
you personally, and Aquarius is the sign again of the collective. And so when
mhm,
we think of us and the collective, it begs the question of what role are you playing in the collective? Do you just feel like an observer, or do you feel like you're part of it? Because I feel like when you're playing as just an observer, that kind of also takes away the power. I feel like may make us feel like we don't have a say on how things can turn out. But this day is a reminder that actually we do have a say, and if we're like wise about what we choose, um, that could bring us the exact people that we need to be around. That could bring us the exact tribe that we need to be able to share more about what we have inside of us. Because at the end of the day, we all came to planet Earth with a gift, with more than one gift to share, to anchor in deep here. And more often than not, it's when we have the right people around us that we're actually able to do it, right? When we're surrounded by people that, um, either aren't reaching their dreams or aren't inspiring us to be our best, then we kind of also, I feel like, don't like retreat inward. And I'm also saying this because the South Node is still in Libra. And um, yeah, Libra is a sign of relationships and partnerships and one on one partnerships and who we surround ourselves with. And just the importance, I guess, of who we surround ourselves with. Um, because dictates, that could dictate um, how much we could actually do. Does that make sense?
mhm. Totally. I'm so fascinated how when you're talking that we attract the tribe when we come out there, when we're brave and courageous and sharing our truth. The squirrel is just, it's literally here coming down to greet us and wants to join your podcast. So that's amazing. Totally makes sense. Totally makes sense. And we're closing an epic chapter in the relationship sector of our collective um, evolution.
Mm,
And I really see how even with my clients, there are a lot of them who have ended a lot of relationships, whether romantic or, um, partnership and relationships, and so many aspects. A lot of that has transformed, and a lot of those that are not in coherence or in alignment with the self, the me, the Aries part, it dissolves. end. And we're still in that energy.
Mm,
So, like you said, I feel like there's so much courage and bravery that is being asked and invited of us to jump into and to own, um, just because um, it takes a lot of self, it takes a lot of responsibility and accountability, which are also Aries keywords, to be more discerning of the relationships and the partners that you choose for yourself.
mm. I love that you brought in the squirrel because to me, squirrels have very Leo energy, and squirrels are all about playfulness, I feel like. And I think that might be the message as well for this whole month. Like it may get heavy, it may get difficult, but at the end of the day, come back to your inner child and come back to the
Mm,
playfulness within you and ask her or ask him, right? Little you, what would they want out of this situation? Whatever you're in right now, whatever you're dealing with, what would make them happy? And then how can we take steps towards that in preparation for Mars moving back into Leo later in a
mhm,
couple months? So then, not the next day, but the next big thing that's happening is on the 8th of January, and that is Mercury moving into Capricorn after spending a significant amount of time in Sagittarius. We had Mercury direct and then retrograde and then direct again in Sag, teaching us, I feel like, about our boundlessness. I feel
mhm,
like was the message, our boundlessness, about where we're creating boundaries for ourselves, where boundaries don't even need to exist, about the beliefs that are keeping us trapped in our own minds. But
mhm.
also, I feel like Mercury in Sagittarius allowed us to get a glimpse of what kind of expansion. Um, oh my gosh. And I see two white butterflies dancing with each other, Thea.
And here you were just saying you just saw one butterfly and the first butterfly in your whole trip, and now you see
Now
two.
I see two dancing with each other. That playfulness, right? And also that, like, that Mercury teaching us, like, we're so expansive when we're dancing with the right people. Like, we can
Mhm.
be so expansive. We can be, I mean, as humans, we're capable of so much. And I love how while Mercury was in Sagittarius, we also had Pluto in Aquarius, and we had these two playing together to see how, like, how much can we really fan our own flames to empower ourselves, to create in a way that feels good, to actually be confident in the message that we're sharing. And now that Mercury is moving into Capricorn, it's more about how can we ground it? How can we make it more real? How can we ground it in our bodies? How can we honor our bodies? How can we listen to the messages that our bodies are telling us, since we've already worked kind of with the beliefs, with the mind work, with the boundlessness? How do we come back to integrity? Because to me, like the first word that always comes up with Capricorn is integrity, isn't it? What do you see?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, 100% with you. Integrity and alignment. And I think we were talking a lot about reintegration on December as a preparation for January. And I'm actually gonna bunch up a bunch of transits because it these things don't happen independent of each other. It's a buildup, and then um yeah, it's a buildup and a storyline that reveals itself to you because there's a bigger, like there's a bigger book. There's a wider story that is actually inviting you to play with. And so we have Mercury and Capricorn, and then we're going to have that full moon in Cancer. Around the same time, we're going to have Venus conjunct Saturn, and then Sun conjunct Pluto, and then Sun enters Aquarius. And we're going to touch up on those one by one, but just to give you a more coherent, energetic theme, because I remember in December, we asked you to reflect on your why, right? Why do you do these things? Why do you want to do what you do? And what is your bigger why for your motivation? For January, since we're still in that contemplative Mars retrograde energy and these conjunctions with Saturn, which can be very constricting and limiting, which can be blocks, which can be cold, which can dampen the mood. Again, there's this big reflective water emotionally charged time. And my invitation for you is to go into the 7 layers or 7 levels of your why. What does that mean? When you ask yourself why do you do what you do? Ask yourself again, but why? And then ask yourself again, why? Ask yourself why 7 times, because oftentimes when we move around the world, we have a surface idea of the why behind our motivation. But when we get to explore deeper, and again, this Cancer and Capricorn axis is the highest and the lowest. It's the height and the trough. And so it's a perfect opportunity for you to really dive deep into the mystery of your why. And that's the 7 layers of it. And when you feel complete, like when you've truly unearthed and simplified, Saturn energy, Mercury and Capricorn, it likes to simplify things, right? When you find yourself to want to be in alignment, to want to be in integrity, or to want to be in this position of responsibility, oftentimes the why just breaks down itself in one word. And so, what is that word for you? And perhaps this can also be an invitation for you to explore what's your word for 2025. And Mercury in Capricorn gives us that sobering depth that allows us to really reflect. What do we truly value? What's most important to us? And so how can we stand up and show up in alignment to that? So ask yourself that deeper why. And when you've explored that, maybe you can re-enter some more questions like what? What for? What is this for? Who is it for? And the how. Maybe touch up on the how later, because then it renews your purpose and it gives you a more solid foundation and a solid base to build your purpose from. Does that make sense?
I love how you brought in the word for 2025 because as you were talking about Capricorn, um, and just like simplifying, my word for 2024 was simplify and simple. Um, and I was like, okay, this is a great time to think about a word for 2025. And you said this is a great time to think about a word for 2025. So if you're entering the year and you're like, I still don't know what my word is, give yourself some time because this Mercury moving into Capricorn may give you some grounding. And like Thea said, it's a sobering effect of like, okay, now what is it? And I also love how you said 7 whys. That's deep. That makes me think of peeling an onion, and just
Mm-hmm.
the layers of an onion, right? And how the
Mm-hmm.
deeper you go into the onion, the more you would likely cry as you're cutting the insides of the onion.
Yeah.
Um, and so, how can the why be that deep that it makes you maybe not doesn't make you want to cry, but it makes you go so deep within yourself that it touches chords that aren't usually touched.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Okay. Anything else to say about Mercury and Capricorn? I want to say I think it's a great time to get back to a journaling practice if you've
Mm.
let go of your journaling practice because Capricorn is, again, earth, it's grounded. Also, a great time to come back in touch with your finances and become aware of how you want to spend money in 2025. How do you want your relationship with money to look? Funny story, but I was counting. Indonesian money with my mom and Navs, and I was passing it to Navs to count, and I just like kind of like, phew, and both my mom and Navs are like, "Don't do that. You know, you got to show money that you care about money. You gotta respect it." My mom's like, "You got to put money in your eyes every time you receive it." So, like, what are those rituals that you have with money to show money that you care about it, that you want to be in a relationship with it. Because again, for so long, we've had such a toxic relationship with money as a collective. And I think starting a couple years ago, we started seeing it change, especially with crypto and with the way money, like, oh my God, the numbers that we see. I was reading a book, I can't remember the name of the book, but it was talking about how the numbers that we see in a bank account, like when we go look at our bank account, those are fictional. That kind of money doesn't exist at all. It's literally just digital numbers, but there's no paper money like that. So at the end of the day, it's kind of like it's an illusion, isn't it? But if we have a relationship with it, I think it takes away the illusion of it and kind of makes it more whatever we make it to be with the relationship that we have with it. So, all of that to say, this is a great time to come back in touch with what is your relationship with money? What is your relationship with the earth? What is your relationship with your body? And also, how are you nourishing yourself?
Yummy. Yummy, yummy. Which I think brings us also into that full moon in Cancer when
Exactly.
we talk about nourishment, when we talk about security, when we talk about what, a foundational, like a strong foundational and a relationship with having a strong foundation actually means and looks like for us. I feel like these are really, really yummy contemplations to have. What's coming up for you for the full moon?
Well, I'm just realizing that um, I guess the full moon is going to be conjunct Mars, huh? Because Mars is going to be back in Cancer, and the full moon is on the 14th, Philippine time, 6:26 a.m., somewhere around 23 degrees of Cancer. And if you guys are like, how does she know that it's going to be conjunct? The full Mars is going to be conjunct. It's because Mars is moving backward in Cancer, we begin at 29 degrees. So Mars is definitely, maybe, I don't know. Do you know where Mars is? Maybe 27, 26,
Yeah, around
somewhere
that.
around there. And then the full moon is at 23. So you can tell. And oh, just that energy, huh, of Mars pushing back and the moon pushing forward. I think there is a testing. I don't know. I think my word for this month is
Mhm,
testing, but I think we
mhm,
will really be tested of how safe are we feeling? And also, um, if we're not allowing ourselves to express ourselves, we might implode.
mhm,
Because with Cancer, there's a lot of emotions. I
mhm.
have my Venus and Mercury in Cancer. Oh, I actually have my Mercury at 29 degrees of Cancer, so this is also conjunct this. But I think there's so much here. I think there is a big question of how are we mothering ourselves? How are we taking care of ourselves? But also, it's just like, I don't know. How are you feeling it? I feel there are so many words, but more feelings
I
than
feel
words.
too. I feel like there's a sense of emotional maturity and emotional resilience that this full moon is inviting for us to have, especially we're starting the year with a culmination.
Mm, mhm.
And um, we're ending the year with a new beginning, with an intentionally contemplative new moon. But to to begin a year with a culmination, it means that there's a lot of resilience, like emotional resilience for us and maturity for us to face the shadows that has been, that 2024 has brought up so that we can enter the year in a more, like we kept talking about, aligned and integrated place. And with this full moon in Cancer, we're still in solstice time. There's Yeah, like the strongest theme for me really is how are we becoming more mature mothers and fathers, parents for our inner child? You talked about the inner child a while ago. No, how are we creating that safe space for us? How are we learning attunement? Right. And this I feel like is becoming a buzzword, attunement, where it just essentially means we give ourselves the care and attention right at the moment that we need that specific care and attention. And there's so much manifesting in the global stage where the generations before us weren't attuned. And the adults who grew up in a misattuned environment are lashing out and are just creating destructive habits and patterns for themselves just because they weren't able to get that care and nourishment that they needed when they needed it. So how can you become your inner parent? How can you become the parent for yourself and give yourself that attunement, that attention so that you can, we talked about endings, you can allow your patterns to be seen and then try to move away from those patterns and create better patterns that are more in alignment with your values and more in alignment with your dreams. We are needing to be in resonance in 2025 because there's so much shift, there's so much transformation and so much change in a collective level that's happening. And the first quarter of the year has a lot to do with this inward self-care time just until we reach Q2 and onwards, and the lot of these shifts are happening in Q2 and Q3. When we don't have that stable emotional environment, maturity and resilience for us to jump into the changes that are happening, oh gosh, we can like the tides can literally F us over if we're not aware and if we're not taking this time to really give ourselves the comfort and the nurturing that we need. That's what's coming up for me. And it's a sensitive new moon in a Mars retrograde time. There's a lot of healing of wounded masculinity. I think we touched up on this in December already. So there's still a lot of emotional wounds that are needing some solve and some medicine. And with Venus and Pisces, love. What would love do? How can you give yourself that much love so that you are supported when you stand in alignment?
Mm. And also, I want to give some backstory of how Cancer is like our maternal lineage and Capricorn is our paternal lineage. And so I feel like this is also a month that brings up ancestry in many different
Yeah,
ways. Maybe not
yeah.
necessarily like, not necessarily ancestors or talking to our ancestors, but kind of like honoring how would, like, how are we building our legacy for the time that we are the ancestors.
Beautiful.
Yeah, to me, it's not necessarily about looking out to our ancestors. Of course, we're still doing that. I mean, but we're living them. But it's
Yeah.
also about honoring like us as ancestors and what is the legacy that we're leaving and what is the legacy that we're building right now. And
Yeah.
legacy is a Capricorn word, right? And you said
Yeah.
ask why, ask the seven whys. And I think those seven whys will definitely help us become more aware of what is the legacy that we're building. Um,
Mhm.
and and also, Cancer and Capricorn are a polarity. And with this polarity, I think it's the key word here is safety. And
Mhm.
obviously, with Capricorn, it's like physical, material safety. And with Cancer, it's emotional safety. How emotionally safe are we really feeling? And something to bring in too is it is possible to feel emotionally unsafe just with ourselves, right?
Absolutely.
I feel like
Absolutely.
often we think about how we're emotionally unsafe around other people. But I think
Mm.
this month is bringing in how it's possible. We can be so, yeah, it's just really possible to be emotionally dysregulated just by the things that we're doing with our own selves.
Yeah.
So this is a great month, I think, to come and notice what are our destructive patterns as well.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
Because I think, I mean, it's feminine. There's a lot of feminine this month, thankfully,
Yeah.
because a lot of the
Yeah.
bigger shifts are going to be like masculine. So it's coming back inward. It's coming back to look at how are we stopping ourselves from being our best selves? How are we
Mm.
stopping ourselves from attracting more money? How are we stopping ourselves from actually expressing our emotions in ways that feel good? And
Mm.
then coming back to remember, it's not about judgment and it's not about thinking about, oh my God, I'm horrible. Why did I do this? But it's
Mhm.
more about, okay, now how can I build another home?
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
How can we just keep building homes for ourselves to continue to feel safer and safer in our own presence? Because the truth of the matter is, if we're not safe in our own presence, we're never going to feel safe in anyone else's presence, right? I think that was a big lesson as well from the nodes.
Yeah. Yep. And I feel so passionately just because I have a personal, transformative, cathartic, ongoing storyline with the nodes and the themes that we're talking. So this is very near, dear, close to my own personal journey.
Yeah.
So absolutely, 100% everything said.
So that's the full moon. Thea, do you have a suggestion for a full moon ritual if someone decides that they want to, access the energy of the Cancer moon?
Um, just when you were asking me, there's just a strong gust of wind. So, allowing myself to just honor wind and honor thoughts as we transcribe our emotions into thoughts. That full moon, I feel like because there's already so much water and we're here to um, try to build an anchor and a solid foundation amidst the water to take us through the change. What I'm feeling called to share as ritual is um, just to hold a glass of water and allow your thoughts to be transferred into that water energetically through your hand, especially if there's just so much emotions that's boiling into the surface that we can't even have words or we don't even know how to express it just because there's so much feelings. Allow the water to hold that, allow the glass to hold that, and instead of drinking it as a release, give it to the earth. Or you can just offer your breath to it as, as an act of, I release all these emotions from taking space in my body with love, with with acceptance and with compassion. I offer this as um, I offer this into the altar of the earth and offer it back to the earth. That's what I'm called to share. For ceremony, just to release, just if a lot is coming.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And also, as a artist, I invite you to pick up a paper and pick up whatever coloring stuff you have, or pens, or whatever it is, and just get it out. Like,
Mm,
maybe before you transfer it to the water, get it
mm,
out so you kind of become, or maybe after you transfer it to the water so that it's just
yeah,
clear. It's a clear slate
yeah,
by that point. And
yeah.
don't don't direct yourself. Don't say this is what it's supposed to look like. Don't have
Mhm.
any expectations. Just get it out. And it could look like the worst scribbles in the world, but the purpose is not creating art to share. The purpose is getting it out of you. But if you want to share
Mm,
it, go share it, and share your story about it. Because I think this month is a great month to also start telling our stories more and start telling our stories through our art. And so,
mm,
I don't know, maybe you scribble on a paper, you post the paper, and in the caption, you write your story about what was it that you scribbled out. And I think that sounds very cathartic. Okay, so moving on to the 19th. Oh, we're doing it quickly this month, huh? I guess we should do it like this next time. Um, on the 19th, we have Venus conjunct Saturn in Pisces around 16 degrees. Like Thea said, there is a lot of water. So we have Venus in water, we have Saturn in water, we have Mars in water. Do we have more water?
Neptune is still in Pisces. This is
We
the
have
biggest
Neptune in
water.
water. Do we have anything in Scorpio right now?
No.
Okay. So that makes me think that the water release is in Scorpio. If there's
Mm,
stuff going on in Cancer and there's stuff going on in Pisces, the release could be in Scorpio. So I don't know, but my invitation for this day is like, become aware of where you're manipulating yourself or where you're manipulating other people. Because
mm.
Scorpio, that's a downside. Thea, can you bring us the upside of it?
The upset, I think this is something that you touched up on when we talked about Mercury and Capricorn already. Like reassess your relationship with money because Venus rules money as much as it rules relationships, but life is a relationship and everything is just an energetic mirror to our bigger relationship with ourselves. And this conjunction with Saturn can feel heavy, it can feel depressive, it can feel constricting just because that is the nature of Saturn. Saturn just brings everything inward. It blocks, it cools, it constricts, it dries. But and in Pisces, which is actually quite the opposite, um, Venus is a strong Venus here. It's exalted. So I like how you said, um, I like how you brought up, see where we're manipulating or we're forcing some thing around our relationship with money or with where we're forcing and it's causing an imbalance. And I feel like this conjunction, also with every conjunction, it's a seed point, it's a beginning of a new cycle. So we're starting the year with these conjunctions. We have a Venus Saturn conjunction, we have a Sun and Pluto conjunction. There's there's there, there's there's really a lot of contemplation and a lot of reflection around where we're tipping the scales, where we're manipulating things, where we're forcing things, where we're feeling blocked, where we're blocking our own self. And like these are reflections that I invite you to do and to have.
I also want to say, if you feel like this is such a slow start to the year, embrace it.
Yeah,
Please
yeah,
embrace it
yeah,
because it's about to like speed up at warp speed. So,
yeah,
like Thea said,
yeah,
if we're dysregulated, then once all these planetary shifts happen, it's just going to amplify the dysregulation.
yeah,
So, this is a
yeah,
great month to kind of get things in order for yourself, set your plans down, become aware of maybe it's not resolutions, but what do you hope to accomplish in
yeah. I like that.
2025? um, Venus, right? Venus, worthiness. How worthy do you feel to actually put in the work to get what you want? Because
Mm,
Saturn tells us nothing comes easy. You're not just going to sit there and want it and then get it. But I feel like
mm,
Saturn in Pisces also shows us that manifestation is so real. And if
yeah.
we really want it enough in our body, we can really get it. But if there is even the slightest tinge of a no or uncertainty, then
Mhm,
it's that easy to also not get it. Like, I
mhm,
think we're at such an instrumental time where it feels like a very fine line
mhm.
that we kind of have to like walk on. um,
Yeah.
not in a bad way, but in a way of just becoming so just so aware
Mhm, mhm,
of what we're doing, which is why I said it's a great time to restart your journaling practice, because journaling is a great way to kind of face ourselves and become aware of what are the storylines playing under the radar that are actually okay. Like, like if we don't have a practice, I'm just realizing this based on my own life recently, but if we don't have a morning practice, it's so
mm,
easy for the rest of the day to kind of just be like very roller coastery because there was no setting the stage. And so
mhm,
I feel like for 2025, for the whole year, this whole month of January is setting the stage. So this is the
mhm,
month to put in the new rituals. This is the month to become aware of what do you do when you feel like shit. This is the month to become aware of how do you get yourself to create when you feel imposter syndrome kicking in. It's asking all of these questions that are stopping you from being your biggest self, because
mhm,
2025 is a great year to really just jump into our biggest, most expansive selves. And I want to pull in something very quickly before we talk about the sun moving into Aquarius. And that is, I see a lot of astrologers saying that 2025 is the most similar year that we're going to have to 2020.
to 20, yeah.
What do you have to say about that? Or like
I
in
feel
what
like it's a
way?
yeah. I feel like it's a yes and a no just because 2020 set the stage with a bunch of conjunctions. We had that Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn, and then we have Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius. The great conjunction on December. So I feel like in that regard, just because 2020 was a pivotal year that gave us a lot of outer planets changing signs and signaled a lot of transformation, it opened the decade. And 2025 is the middle of the decade. This is the first square. This is the opening square to that Jupiter Saturn story. And opening squares are what's known as this crisis in action. So where in 2020 we kind of had an idea of what crisis or what the storyline can be in terms of transformation and change in Aquarius. Now in 2025, because there are a lot of trines to Aquarius. I mean, not just trines, but there are a lot of supportive aspects to Pluto in Aquarius. And Neptune and Saturn are conjoining, which isn't something that happens. Obviously, it happens every a couple of decades. It has the same signature with that Jupiter Saturn conjunction. And when these outer planets start a new cycle, it brings us it it quantum leaps us into just crazy transformations that we don't even have words for, not even as astrologers. And it's not like we're here to predict what's going to happen. We kind of just know that the energies for 2025 has a lot of change in it and has a lot of transformation, new beginnings and epic endings with it. And so I think in that regard, they're similar, but also they're not because it's a continuation of that seed in 2020. But for me, and I think this is something that we talk about all the time. By the time that we hit the middle of the decade, we're going to see that nothing is the same. And so whatever change that we step into, or whatever it is that we step into because we're resisting change, this is the year to do that. Because after this, what's coming in my mind is when a train leaves the station, the first few seconds it's just gaining speed, but once it has gained its speed and momentum, it's difficult to stop. That's 2025 for me. We are in this period right now where it's slowly gaining momentum, and so this is the perfect opportunity for us to actually start implementing little habits, like just the incremental changes, that 1% change that we can do every day to shift or to change, because once it gains momentum, it's going to stick and it's going to become a pattern. And so if we're serious about, stepping in alignment and really understanding the why, the 7 layers of why, and our purpose and our intention for being here, our raison d'etre, our reason for being, this is the time to actually do that, because by the time that we hit 2026 onwards, it's going to have created a neural pathway, and it's going to take more than, will and grit to create and shift those neural pathways that are just going to become like glue. That's what's coming.
Well, yeah, and when you say that it's the middle, right? It makes sense. Like it's a turning point or it's a
Hmm.
stay the same point. Like you choose.
Hmm.
You choose if you want
Hmm.
it to be the exact same or if you want it to be a turning point. But if you
Hmm.
choose that you want it to be a turning point, the universe is like blessing you, being like,
Yeah.
go, go,
Yeah.
please turn.
Yeah.
All right. So then on the 20th, we have the sun moving into Aquarius. And then the next day, we have the sun conjunct Pluto at 1 degree of Aquarius. I want to talk about both of these together because I feel like,
Yeah.
of course, they're very deeply tied into each other. But I would like you to talk about it first. What do you feel with sun moving into Aquarius, and how are you feeling the sun conjunct Pluto? What does it feel like in our bodies?
Um, so maybe just to break it down. Because when you ask that, a mango just dropped loud with a thump. The sun has a lot to do with our ego structure. It has a lot to do with our vitality and a lot to do with our energy. And with Pluto, it has a lot to do with fear, what is underground, what is underneath, what is hidden. And it has to do with deep time and slow decay. And so when these two planets go together, the sun shines the light, shines light on these hidden things, like the plutocracy, the change that is needing to happen, the transformation that's needing to happen, all the fear that's blocking you from really shining your light. And in the Aquarius sector, that has a lot to do with your unique, your rebellion, your genius. And when I say genius, it's beyond the norms of known reality, or it's beyond the norms of acceptable knowledge. And I feel like what's coming to me, and I also see that Mercury is entering Aquarius a few days after. What's really coming to me as a reflection is, instead of setting New Year's resolutions, which a lot of people are here to do, because we're shining a light on our blocks and our fears and the transformation that we're actually needing to do for the rest of the year, because this is the seed point. What is your intention? And when I say intention, I think the root word of intention is to be in deeper purpose. You know, because this is a theme that we've been talking about this whole time. What is your intention and what is your deeper purpose? I'm going to bring in again that we are here as a contribution. We each have a contribution to the collective. Aquarius has a lot to do with the collective. Aquarius also has a lot to do with technology and the fears around technology. Where are you allowing these fears to actually manipulate you from jumping wholeheartedly to embrace the change, the revolution, the genius, the out of the box, the breaking open and the breaking away from the status quo, the known reality, or the known. And oftentimes, right, when we talk about change, there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of discomfort. And so not a lot of people are open to change exactly because of the uncertainty and the discomfort. And I feel like these couple of days, we're going to have more uncertainty and we're going to have more discomfort, because the invitation is to sit with it. And then again, to find that safe space and that grounded energy, the kind of emotional resilience and maturity to sit within the discomfort, because there is uncertainty, because there is so much unknown. And with Venus in Pisces, Neptune still in Pisces, it's completing its transit in Pisces. There is an invitation to faith, an invitation to trust, and an invitation to surrender, that as long as you do the work to know your deeper why, you've peeled off the layers, the 7 layers of your why. You can set your intention out there, and then you can trust, you can surrender that what is meant for you, the highest outcome of that, beyond what you think is possible, will come to you if you allow yourself to be open. Because, right, how we operate, how our minds operate, we have this negativity bias. We also have what we call a confirmation bias, where we set an expectation based on our intention, and then we kind of close ourselves off. Like, it's a biological impulse where we close ourselves off to what else, what's possible, right? And I feel like this Sun Pluto conjunction is just gonna break our minds open and remind us that, dude, we have no idea what can happen from here. So how can you open? How can you soften? How can you relax and surrender? Because you just need to be in alignment with your heart and your purpose. Life is simple. Love, money, relationships, these are actually very, very simple, grand concepts that actually just asks us to be in alignment with our joy, be in alignment with our purpose, be in alignment with why we are here, at least the deeper why of why we are here. And once we understand that, all the complexities that are human minds that actually just put in the pot to steer in, just so we can experience the fullest of the human um, life, Earth School. We kind of we kind of set the stage up for ourselves for failure in a way because we're not opening ourselves up to what else is possible. So that's what's coming to me. I don't know if I'm making sense, but I feel like you get me.
You're
Am I
making
making
sense. You're making sense. And as you're talking, I'm actually remembering how we forgot to invite Mercury to our conversation today. Because I'm noticing I'm losing a lot of my words. And Mercury, please come join us. You are
Mhm.
invited. Um, and no, that makes a lot of sense. I love that. So, when I was talking about Mercury in Sagittarius, I was talking about how while Mercury was in Sagittarius, we experienced the boundlessness. But I feel like this is even more like this is the boundless of the boundless. Like,
Yeah.
I love what you said about how just all of it, like, how are we keeping ourselves in that, in this little safe space and not really
Fear
entertaining.
bubble. Pluto is a fear bubble.
I love that. How are we keeping ourselves in a fear bubble, right? To and in that process, how are we uh again words repelling? How are we repelling
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
what's actually meant for us because we're
Yeah.
in a fear bubble. So
Yeah.
maybe this day where Sun conjunct Pluto, you turn your fear bubble into a love bubble.
I
Um
love that. I love that.
because Aquarius is telepathic, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, something I'm noticing or something I've been working with a lot actually this last year is the intentionality, like you said, behind the things that I'm doing, the thoughts behind the things that I'm doing, because it's so different when you do something, but then the thoughts are not in line with what we're doing versus when we
Mm,
do something and the underlying thought as we're in the process of creating the thing
mm,
is positive. All of that to say,
mm,
like, this is a great time to realize that you are capable of telepathy with
mhm,
people and with the universe. And
mhm,
so if we are in this fear bubble, that's what we're attracting. If we're in a love
mhm,
bubble, that's what we're attracting.
mhm,
But also defining what is love and what is fear for
mm,
us, right? Because it changes day to day, year to year, like it changes. And of course, fear for everybody is different and love for everybody is different. And I think this is a great time to become aware of what is it that we believe is love? What is it that we believe is fear? What is it that we believe is hurt? What is it that we believe, right? Because it's on us to create our own definitions and then bring those definitions together to create a collective that actually has like this tribe.
mhm,
Because if we don't know our own definitions, how on earth are we going to find a tribe that
mhm,
believes the same things? So I don't know. For all we know, we're in a fear bubble and we're calling it a love bubble. So I think thank you so much. Thank you so much. um, yeah. So I think this Sun conjunct Pluto is a great day to just become aware of what are we attracting and what are we repelling.
yeah.
And also how can we be creative about how we go into our own underworlds?
I like that.
And also, how can we use AI to our advantage?
Yeah,
Right. I
100%. Like
think that
there's
one is
so much
huge.
fear. Yeah, there's so much fear around um innovations and particularly that kind of innovation. And of course there are political, social political agendas behind it. But at the same time, there are certain realities that we are being invited to opt into and enroll. And I like this saying, what you resist persists. And I think
Mhm.
this is also a reflection that I invited early on. Where are you resisting? And why are you resisting? I don't know if I was mentioning that to you pre-recording, but where are we resisting these innovations and how much of that is actually fear-based?
Mm.
And how might we reframe and shift that into, you know, like you said, love, because it is there whether or not we accept it or use it. There are already a lot of advantages, as much as disadvantages to it. But we're not going to touch upon the social political advantages and disadvantages of it. But it's there, and if it's helping you create beauty, if it's helping you become more optimized in the way you share your gifts and your genius and your unique contribution, then why are you stopping yourselves? Why are you blocking yourselves and allowing yourself to be in that bubble of of fear and illusion? Because we are also here to teach the thing, and it also helps us to advance the evolution of the innovation. And it also helps the collective realize that as humans, there are still a lot of untapped potential where that AI can never really do in terms of like compassion or creativity. There's still so much, and we've barely scratched the surface of what our human potential can do. Intuition, telepathy, these are the things that technology can never, won't be able to do, at least right now.
That makes me think of something. And
Hmm.
what it makes me think of is how how AI and technology, like we can use it and we can know what it's for, but it's so capable of being such a big distraction from exactly what you were saying, telepathy, intuition, like our own personal strengths. Um, so yeah, I felt really passionately about that when you were sharing about how there is so much untapped human potential and we're starting to see it, but we're also like there are so many of us that are rebelling against AI, which is taking so much attention and time. What if we what if we married it? What if we
Exactly.
understood the beauty of AI and how AI can actually help us share more of our intuition and
Yeah.
how AI can actually help us activate more of our telepathy? You know, it's so funny, for example, and I'm thinking they're all already connected. One day, I was thinking about I was thinking about how I had to buy a hair dye from Healthy Options. Okay, very, very real, very physical. Um, and I just thought about it, okay? And then I took a nap. I went on Instagram after. I got an ad for it. I didn't
Mm.
talk about it. I didn't say a
Hmm.
single word about this. I just napped. And
Hmm.
and Instagram was showing me an ad for this exact thing that I thought about. So
Hmm.
I'm not really sure what's happening. But right, isn't that weird? I know that the microphone obviously can hear us, but how is it reading our thoughts? But then again, see, this is actually cool. We can think, oh my God, this is so cool. Or we can
Hmm.
think, oh shit, we're being tracked. Um,
Yeah.
and that's such different avenues to go
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that is our blurb for Aquarius season and Sun in Aquarius and Sun conjunct Pluto in Aquarius and Mercury moving into Aquarius as well. I think this is all of it, right? Mercury moves into
Mhm.
Aquarius on the 28th of the month. So Mercury
Mhm.
makes two shifts. Mercury is only in Capricorn for 20 days. So make
Yep.
the most of those 20 days to really get things solidified, get things like
Mhm.
real, get things physical, because once Mercury moves into Aquarius, that could look overwhelming if you haven't done the setting stage while
Mhm.
Mercury is in Capricorn.
Mhm. Mhm.
Do you have more to say about Mercury in Aquarius? Well, this story actually that I just told of
Yeah, yeah.
of Instagram reading my mind feels like Mercury in Aquarius because
Very.
to me, a mind is like a computer, isn't it? Like I feel like when we woke up, this is what we were talking about, how our whole bodies are machines and our mind is a computer. And um, it makes sense that our computers can read our mind. And yes, it is a bit creepy, but it's evolution. And we're
Mhm.
creeped out because we've never seen anything like it before. But when
Mhm.
we think about it, how freaking cool is it that we live in a world like this? Like, it's so cool.
with you 100%, but also invitation. I mean, Saturn also still rules Aquarius. And there's still some sense of sobering tone with Mercury and Aquarius. Probably something that I would just like to offer, like just put it out there. Where are you being so rigid, where you justify your rightness? Because with Aquarius, it can be very cold. It can be very, I forget the term, but it's a village in Divergent. What is this? What is one of those? one of one of the four sectors of society. They can be very like they can be very straight, and when they justify themselves because they know they're right and that they're very to the law, although that's actually kind of Sagittarius thing too. Um, an invitation to ask yourself, why do you think you believe what you believe? And is it even worth defending? Because we are in a period of time where we're supposed to be opening up to everybody's genius. And if we keep justifying what we think is right based on logic, based on reasoning only, then how are we making space again for all those other aspects of our humanity where there's intuition, where there's the subtle, where you just really can't apply logic? And um, it is an air sign at the end of the day, but it's a fixed air sign. So how might we adjust that fixity? Because 2025 has a lot to do with adaptability to change and, flexibility to open up to more than just one way of looking at things. So I want to put it out there.
So speaking about adaptability to change, on the 29th, we actually have a lot of things going on. But the first thing that's going on is, and I can give you timestamps if you want to know, but so at 2:50 p.m. Manila time, um, South Node and North Node leave Libra and Aries for Virgo and Pisces. And so you were talking about adaptability, and these are mutable signs. For the next 1.5 years, we're being asked, how can we be changeable? How can we be mutable? How can we adapt to our surroundings while still knowing who we are? Right? It's so
Mm-hmm.
important. This is why it was so important to have the North Node in Aries to become so aware of
Mm-hmm.
who are we, so that
Mm-hmm.
now that it's moving into Pisces and Virgo, we already know who we are. Now we're able
Mm-hmm.
to kind of become chameleons based on
Mm-hmm.
whatever we're needing. And then
Mm-hmm.
um, we'll talk more about what's happening with the nodes, but and then at 3:52 we have Mercury conjunct Pluto in
Mm-hmm.
Aquarius, and then
Mm-hmm.
at 8:35 p.m. we have the new moon in Aquarius. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of Aquarius action, but also we get the nodes shifting on the same day as the new moon
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
Aquarius. That's huge.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you have enough time to even talk about the nodal shift, so I would like to invite you to actually have a deeper exploration of the nodal
We
shift, just because this
actually
is
are gonna do it. You, me, Nola, and Chris. We're gonna do it.
okay, because it's the changing of the guards, and this is like a grander collective evolutionary journey and new story that we're stepping into. But just to compress everything, because we have that Mercury conjunct Pluto, we have the new moon in Aquarius, and then we have Uranus stationing direct by the end of the month. We kind of touched up on, the genius, this out of the box thinking, but we're still in this month of review and we're still in this month of contemplation. So how has the past 6, 7 months, like, I think it's so beautiful how we're ending January with uh, an outer planet stationing direct, because then it really sets up the stage for the rest of 2025 after this reflection, after this whole contemplative period. And with Uranus and Taurus, I think this is exactly what we've been talking about, right? Like the revolutions that we've experienced in terms of finances, in terms of the systems that we have enrolled ourselves into, like the fiat system. That's a very hard, like, Taurian theme. There's also a lot of progress and innovation around somatic and nervous system regulation. And I think this is still a buzzword that's going to continue until 2025, especially as Uranus moves into Gemini. There's a lot of nervous system dysregulation and regulation that's going to be in the ether, for discussion and for exploration. There has been a lot of steps and strides around neuroscience and neuropsychology, and also technology and AI, and how it's changing so much, um, how businesses are being operated and how we are operating, how our bodies are operating in the world. And so much around somatics and embodiment. These are very Uranus and Taurus themes. I think somatic movement, somatic embodiment, somatic coaching, and embodiment coaching, these things have been on the rise since 2018. And I think it's just going to continue to serve its purpose. It has been such a beautiful setup of Uranus being in Taurus to remind us how these innovations and these explorations are actually very important. But most importantly, what did it mean for you? And how did you adapt into these, adapt or opt in, or allow these innovations to be part of your life? And also, where did you resist? Because Uranus has a lot to do with rebellious energy. So where have you been rebelling in your own right, or in your own way, from these technologies, from these sciences, and these new explorations, just because these are unknown to you, or where you think you don't need it because they're a bunch of woo woo or new age stuff? Like, yeah, I think I'm going to stop there.
Yeah, I actually don't even know where to begin. So I think I'm just going to leave it with everything that you said because that is a lot happening in one day. And I think the best thing to do is just feel it for yourself without us giving you too many words of what it's going to feel like, other than an invitation. Like, feel what
Mm,
comes up on the 29th. And also, um, yeah, think back to the last year and a half. And what did you cultivate? And what did you let go of? And what do your relationships look like? And what does your relationship with yourself look like? And how can you allow your relationship with yourself to be the leader of everything else that happens in your life?
mm,
Um, I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it at that. So the new moon happens at around 9 degrees of Aquarius, which is still pretty close to Pluto. And on the same day, Mercury is conjunct Pluto. So I think this is also a great day to be able to access our thoughts, be able to access everything that's been going on behind the surface. It's also a great day for a telepathic communication with our guides, our angels, ourselves, our ancestors. Like we said, this is a great month for ancestry. The sun will already be in Aquarius, but I still kind of feel this Capricornian theme going on.
yeah, yeah,
It's still very loud. And also talking about Vedic astrology, it's usually a sign behind. So I'm pretty
yeah,
sure that Pluto is still in Capricorn when we talk about Vedic astrology. And over here, we don't really talk about Vedic astrology as a system because we don't know it as much, but we like to bring in every form of study because they're all true. They're all true in their own right, aren't they?
yeah, very much so.
Okay, so for the last thing happening on the 31st of January, Uranus stations direct in Taurus at 23 degrees. How do you feel?
I think that was everything that I shared prior, like reflecting back on the past year and a half, and the how what has embodiment meant for
Yeah.
you, and in um what shifts in the systems that run and operate your life did you experience?
Mm.
And as it stations direct, it's still going to be in that shadow phase. It's still going to need its cosmic coffee uh, before it
Wakes
really
up.
moves again. Yeah, before it wakes up. And I like how you say wake up because Uranus and Aquarius energy has a lot to do with like this wake up revolutionary energy.
Yeah.
And we've been talking a lot around purpose. We've been talking around a lot around what our contribution is to the collective. I feel like Uranus stationing direct on January, where the sun, where we had the seed point of Sun and Pluto in Aquarius, also um wakes us up to ourselves, right? We talked about this fear bubble. So what is your genius? What is your unique genius? I feel like there would be some sense of clarity once you're in a station's direct. And I'm actually quite looking forward to it because the past year or the past half, like the past 7 months, we've seen a lot in the world stage how Uranus retrograde played out just in terms of the revolutions and wake up energy,
Mhm.
especially from the youth around the globe, like people rising up um, against oppressive systems. So I wonder individually and for your life, how you've actually been standing up for these systems that you find oppressive. How have you been rebelling? And is there a more, is there a deeper purpose for you now as you move forward into 2025 around what you're really here to stand up for, what your genius is, and what are you rebelling against? Because we're going to need more fuel for what we need to stand up for as the decade progresses.
Yeah. And what I'm feeling really loudly with this as well is our body as vessels.
Beautiful.
And
Yeah.
how are we just that, our body as vessels, and how have we been allowing our bodies to be vessels, and how have we not been allowing our bodies to be vessels, and also the importance of plugging into the earth, which I feel like I haven't been doing enough. So, invitation to
Mm.
everyone, if you feel like you're not, like, I'm just imagining a phone charger. Like, we need
Ooh.
to plug our phones in every single day. Are you plugging yourself in every single day? And maybe it doesn't need to be stepping barefoot on the grass. Maybe it can be just admiring nature. Maybe it can be touching a plant. Maybe it can be
Mm.
putting some, like natural body oils on your body. It's just like coming back to adorning ourselves and like not necessarily with material things, but with love, so that we feel
Mm.
worthy of being vessels to share about just 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 the earth, like share the earth's message. And I think it's a big call to take care of the environment in our own little ways. Like put your recycling in your recycling stuff. Put your bottles in the where the bottles belong, like throw things in the right garbage cans. And then this is making me think of like what if we segregate, but then when the people that collect it dispose of it, they don't dispose of it correctly. But that is, someone else's problem at that point. But like to yourself, like um how can you do things to take care of the earth? Because as you're taking care of the earth, you're actually taking care of yourself. And with Uranus, I feel like the more we take care of the earth and the more we take care of ourselves, the more we'll have um, more boundlessness, more ability to access, all the innovation, all the magic, all the new things that is coming, all the new things that are coming our way in 2025. So, I mean, this is a great way, I guess, to end January. January is like sit, 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 sit. And then finally Uranus is like, all right, I'm back.
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
And then February, like we'll be recording for February, so you'll hear that here next month. But Thea, 3 words for January.
Rest, align, purpose.
Mm, love. Okay, my 3 words are test, um, create,
Mm.
and feel.
Oof. Yep.
And I have to give a disclaimer when I say feel that it may not necessarily be easy this month.
Not
So
at all.
if you're feeling and it's feeling like too much, you can switch, like go think, go play, go create, access the different elements. That's the beauty of astrology. That's the beauty of being on planet Earth. Like we get to play with all of the elements. So if one element gets too heavy, know that it is your ability. Like it is your prerogative to choose another element to kind of bring into your life at that time. Okay. Anything else that you'd like to round January up with?
That's it for me for now. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you all for being here. We absolutely hope that this helps you understand the astrology in a much simpler way. That's our goal here, as we always say. Astrology for us is a guide. It allows us to understand what is happening energetically around us, which actually allows us to be less overwhelmed because we kind of have an idea of what's happening. So that's why we do this. If it serves you, let us know. If you want to hear anything in particular, let us know as well. If you have questions for Thea, let us know as well. But yeah, other than that, thank you for being here, and I hope you have the most amazing January. Bye. Sending love.